All right, let's get some more details on this now. We're joined live from Washington, D.C. by political analyst Laicie Olson. So Obama wants the defense budget trimmed by $78 billion over the course of 5 years. That's only 2.5% over those years. It doesn't really sound like much of a cut to me.
Yes, the cut is only 2.5%, and when that's compared to cuts to state and foreign aid at about around 20% in the current continuing resolution that's being talked about in Congress, it's really pales in comparison to those major cuts that are being made everywhere else.
But now the Defense Secretary, Robert Gates, sorry, I was just going to say, he's asking for nearly, $600 billion, okay, $553 billion for the military. That's half of the entire world's combined defense budget. Surely in a time of recession, this can't be the will of the people, can it?
It's a very, very large amount, and it's still an increase. Defense Secretary Gates is talking about major cuts. This $78 billion in cuts seems like a very large number, but in fact, much of it actually comes from changes in economic assumptions, such as just changing around what the projected inflation rate is. So many of these cuts that are even being talked about are not even cuts, and as a result, the defense budget is still growing by a real increase after inflation of about 3%.
Now, are Americans still as enthusiastic about the so-called war on terror as they were during the George Bush years? Because the defense industry certainly seems to be.
The longer the war goes on, the more tired Americans get of the wars, and the more tired Congress gets. More and more you hear talk about ending the wars, getting out, removing troops, and you do see that in the defense budget this year. The defense budget for overseas contingency operations, which is what they call the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, has decreased from about $159 billion to $118 billion. So that is one major cut that has been made. But on the other side, you have to keep in mind that in all past years, the defense budget has seen emergency supplemental appropriations, which could come later and could add to that number significantly.
So as you were suggesting a moment ago, the American public is perhaps rather war fatigued for the past many years since 2001 that America has been involved in 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. If the public is war fatigued and yet all this money for the military budget keeps coming through the Pentagon, would you say that the US is a military empire controlled by the military industrial complex? Because it seems that the people don't really have much of a say about this.
There are many suggestions that the military could be controlled by the military-industrial congressional complex, even, they say, because many Congress people actually have jobs in their district that they have to protect. And constantly you see this, say, with the F-35 extra engine that was actually just voted down in the House yesterday, but has been supported vehemently by all of the congressmen in the House in past votes.
Now, when it comes to, finally here, with all the billions and trillions being spent since 2001 with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the so-called war on terror, have they been a success?
I believe that the continued drawdown of troops in Iraq does signal some success. I think it's a long and hard battle in Afghanistan still, and I'm curious to see how defense spending goes along with that.
All right. Live from Washington, D.C., that was political analyst Laicie Olson. Thank you.